Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight we're going to talk about which framework to learn how to get a job. I was actually triggered to make this video because I was asked by someone on LinkedIn. And thank you very much. You know who you are. He asked me, should I know Spring Boot in order to get a job? Or if I want a Java-related job or something like that, is Spring Boot the framework that I should know? And the reason for that question is probably because there's a lot of other frameworks like Micronauts, for instance, out there. But then I thought that the question actually deserved a good answer, and that is what I'm trying to do here now. So let me just show right here. This is what I think you should know if you want if you want to be very attractive for the job market, at least in Denmark. Of course, you should always try to see what is needed near you. I know that with remote working places that you don't need to be on site in a lot of companies all the time, but most companies still want you to be on site at least a couple of days per week. So I would definitely look at the job. Which job offerings are there in your area, and then I would actually try to improve my skills within those jobs if I was looking for a job and if I did not have a job. I would say that if you know these skills right here, then you will be very attractive to almost, I would guess, almost any IT, any company that uses IT, which means any company nowadays, right? First of all, I think you should also know a bit of Scrum, how to work with through the agile approaches. Most companies, they actually use Scrum, and you need to know what a daily stand-up is, and you need to know what a Scrum Master is, what a product owner is, how to work, that the tasks are actually or they're prioritized, and there's something called a sprint start, and when you're done with the sprint, you actually have promised that you would actually fulfill all of these tasks or JIRAs through the sprint, stuff like that. So I would definitely recommend that you read up on Scrum if you haven't already. Another thing, I think everybody should know a little bit of Python, just because it's very easy to learn. It is also very cool to solve script-related problems. If you need to move some files, or if you need to do something that you want to automate, then Python is awesome because it's just so easy and it's very fast to both to learn but also to write. So a little bit of Python, I would say that if you don't know a little bit of Python, then try to read up on that. And then, of course, Java. If you call yourself a Java developer, of course, you need to know about the latest Java version and also some of the new features which are here. Not just the latest and stable version and the long time supported version, but you also I would say that you should also know about some of the newer features in the newer versions. Of course, if you're a .NET developer, then you would know .NET instead. I actually think that both Java and .NET developers should know the competing language, a little bit about them. So of course Java, know your Java. Another thing is Docker. You need to know about virtualization and containerization of your code. That means that then you can actually place maybe a jar file, and then you can place that inside a Docker image. You need to know how to do that. What is a Docker file? What is Docker Compose? How do I run a Docker? How do I spin up a Docker container based on a Docker image? What is all of this Docker stuff actually? You need to know a little bit about that, because nowadays you probably also need to help your application get all the way out to production. It is worth nothing unless your code is in production, and that is also what we see with the Scrum approach, that we need to deliver very often, and we need to deliver small chunks of value. Basically, we deliver value. And we need to give value all the time to business, and that means that we need to the delivery pipeline need to work, and very often you will be a part of that at some point in development process. Then there is, of course, Spring Boot. This is my favorite framework for Java. It is awesome. It's just like you can just check from the shelves whichever module that you need. So it doesn't matter what the problem is, that there's almost always a module to solve that, to solve your problem. So definitely Spring Boot. learn the basics and know what is the Spring context. What does it mean when you annotate with @bean on top of a method? How do you configure Spring Boot application? What are the profiles? The basic stuff, and of course, you should also know about the Spring Web module, I would say, and also, of course, you need to know how to connect to databases. We'll get back to the databases in just a minute. Then you need to know something about source control management, and of course, Git is the most used, in my experience at least. This is the most used source control management system. You can also, if you know about Mercurial and the place that your new job company, the new company where you want to be hired, if they use Mercurial, of course, read a bit up on Mercurial. What else? You need to know about Git. You need to know about how to write the Git commands in a console. It doesn't matter whether your IDE actually knows how to commit and push and all that, and do all the merge for you. I think that you need to know. You should know how to write the commands in a terminal, so you actually know what's going on whenever your IDE is doing something for you, or else you can end up in a horrible mess. And you should also know about Git flow. This is a default branching strategy. I've created another video about that, how you would actually how you would only merge with the dev branch when your code has been tested and the definition of done is fulfilled, and you would always branch out from dev when you are starting on a new task and on a new Scrum task. So it's very, very important. You need a good IDE, and no, I'm not paid by JetBrains at all, but I really, really like IntelliJ. I must say so. I like IntelliJ both for Python and also for. But Python it's named PyCharm instead, and for Java it's named IntelliJ. And there's a community edition and there's a professional edition, and you can check out the differences. By going to jetbrains.com. Usually the difference is something that HTML and JavaScript is not as good. There's not as good support for that in the community edition, which than there is in the professional paid for version. You can also get IntelliJ Ultimate, which is a paid version where you get all of the tools. I think at least you got those in the old days. At least I've bought the Ultimate version, which is per subscription, and then I have access to both PyCharm and also IntelliJ, and also the other versions of IntelliJ. So yes. So have a good idea, and of course, if you choose something else, if you choose Eclipse, I would say you will probably, and again, I know I don't have to say that this is my opinion, but this is my opinion. I think that you'll waste a lot of time using Eclipse because the IntelliJ is just much better. That's again, that's my experience. I've used both, and I actually tried to go back to Eclipse some month ago, and I wasted so much time there. So. But it's up to you. Just have a good IDE. And of course, in most companies, in most development departments, it does not matter which IDE you use, because what matters is actually if you're using Gradle for your dependencies or Maven for your dependencies, and then you can actually use which IDE that you want to use, because usually you would not commit the .idea folder. That should always be a part of your git ignore. So that means that as soon as you clone the Git project, and as soon as you run, for instance, Gradle build, then it should build no matter which IDE you use. You could also just run that command in a terminal, of course. Then we have Ubuntu. I think you should know a little bit about Linux. That is definitely recommended, and there are a lot of good resources online, because also if you use Windows, because Windows, the last couple of years, they have been very, very good with their WSL, which is Windows Subsystem for Linux, and you would just be much more productive when you use Linux, because you can use something called SDKman, where you can install Gradle, for instance, very easily. You install all of the SDKs, also the Java SDK. You can install Kotlin, Groovy, etc., etc., etc. So. Learn a little, know a little bit about Linux, and also, of course, if you're using a Mac, that's built on Linux. So, of course, also there it's good to know Linux. Of course, you do not need to be an expert with all of these technologies that I mentioned right here. You never need to be an expert, and you don't need to call yourself an expert. You just need to know the basic stuff, so then you can always improve your skill, of course, with experience when you get some experience at the company where you hopefully are being hired in. Then there's something called REST services. You need to know about REST. You need to know about HTTP communication, that there's a request and then there's a response. You need to know that, for instance, how websites work, just the basics again. You do not need to remember all of the HTTP codes. You can just look those up if you need to check what a 404, for instance, means. You can just look it up. But you need to know the thoughts and ideas behind REST, because it is the most common way to communicate between services and also from client to backend. And of course, now you would say, what about some of the other standards like GraphQL? Yes, they are also there, but if you know REST and HTTP, then it will be very easy for you to also understand like GraphQL or some of the other standards for communication. I really like REST, I must say so. So then we have databases you need to know about. Yeah, I don't think there's any application where you don't need to store data, or there's very few applications where you don't store data. So you need to know about a relational database, and I've just chosen Postgres right here. I could have chosen one of the other many relational databases to show right here. I just really like Postgres. It is my favorite relational database. So learn a little bit about Postgres, know what an SQL is, a structured query language, know how to select, insert, delete, update rows. So another thing you need to know about, you just need to know what it is, and you need to have tried at least just a little bit. That is the NoSQL databases. You need to know that, for instance, MongoDB or CouchDB, those are NoSQL databases, and they're based on documents instead of tables that have relations to each other. Then the MongoDB, the data there is based on collections, on documents. And try it out and just know a little bit of what's going on. Because if you need to store data, which is maybe it's just the data that is not needed to be combined with other data, then MongoDB is a very good choice, because it is so easy to develop against a MongoDB collection and document, because you can just add stuff in your Java classes, and then the data will be stored in the document. RabbitMQ, the reason why I have that here, that is because you need to know a little bit about asynchronous communication, because there's a lot of strength in asynchronous communication. This means that you can send a message to some kind of system, and then the system where you don't need to wait for answer, you can just wait for, you can just check a queue, and then you can see in the queue, okay, the system that got your maybe 10 gigabyte of data, it is not done processing that yet, and then you can just go, you can listen for updates on a queue, for instance, and then whenever there's an update, then the other system, the third-party system, will then leave you a message inside those queues. So asynchronous communication is very, very strong. It's very, very stable. It's very stable systems you can create based on those. And right now I just chose RabbitMQ because I really like that technology. But of course you could also have chosen Kafka or one of the other asynchronous platforms out there. GitHub, and the reason why I have that right here, and again this could just as well been one of the other places where you can place code. The reason why I have this right here is because one of the things you need to convince your new boss about is that you actually know what you're talking about. So create some project that actually uses the technology that is also used in your dream job, because then make it public. Don't put anything secret in that code or anything. Then just have it out there so everybody can reach it on GitHub, because then your boss, he can actually go there, see for himself that you actually know what you're talking about, and you can actually do stuff. You have the ability to actually create an application, and therefore you don't need to spend so much time talking about and convincing him about or her Sorry, about that you know what you're claiming to know, right? So that those things. The last thing that which I did not add right here, which I should have added, is Gradle. It could also have been Maven. I just really like Gradle. And actually, I don't know why I prefer Gradle, but it's just that it takes up less space in the build.gradle file than a pump.xml file. It's larger files, so I just prefer Gradle. Gradle, that is the dependency management system. When you're dealing with especially Java, then you have a lot of dependencies. So of course you need some kind of system where you can handle those, and then where you can actually use those. And this is also how we build our application when we are Java developer. If you are a Vue developer or front-end developer, then you would probably use NPM instead. Yeah, and of course, if you're using Python, if you're a Python developer, then you will probably use pip or Anaconda. And I really like the community edition of Anaconda. I'm using that a lot. If you know just a little bit about all of these things right here, you do not need to be an expert, because no one can call himself expert, because there's always something to know, to learn. And if you think you know everything, then a new version comes out next month of a lot of these technologies, probably, or maybe every half a year, and then you're not an expert any longer. So I would say that you will never know everything. So you need to. It's a constant. It's a constant part of being a developer that you need to acquire new knowledge all the time. That's just how it is. You cannot just learn Java version 4, for instance, and then think that you can continue using that until the end of your career. So, especially if you're like a mainframe developer, then then things are going much faster with the other programming languages. And I have a huge respect for mainframe developers, just so you know. PL1 is awesome. That's actually it. I think that's what I wanted to say. I hope I answered your question. You know who you are, who I'm talking to, and feel free to join my Discord, and have a great evening. Hope to see you again soon, and I hope you get that job. Bye bye.